On May 1, 2011, a decade-long manhunt reached its climax. In the dead of night, deep in Abbottabad, Pakistan, a team of U.S. Navy SEALs executed one of the most daring and secretive military operations in history. Their target? Osama bin Laden, the mastermind behind the September 11th attacks and the world's most wanted terrorist. But how did it all unfold? What led the CIA to a fortified compound hidden in plain sight? And what happened inside those high walls during the raid? This is the story of relentless pursuit, intelligence breakthroughs, and a mission that changed the course of history. It's a tale of determination, risk, and justice finally delivered. Join us as we dive into the incredible journey that led to the end of Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden wasn't always the face of global terrorism. Born in 1957 to one of the wealthiest families in Saudi Arabia, he had privilege, power, and connections. But the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979 changed everything. Bin Laden joined the fight, bringing money, weapons, and fighters to the Mujahideen. He wasn't just another warrior. He was becoming a leader, someone who could inspire others to follow his vision of jihad. In 1988, he formed Al-Qaeda, a network that would take the fight beyond Afghanistan. Bin Laden's ambitions grew darker. He declared war on the United States, accusing it of desecrating Muslim lands and oppressing his people. His words turned to action, and by 1998, Al-Qaeda had struck U.S. embassies in Africa, killing hundreds. But the worst was yet to come. September 11, 2001. Nearly 3,000 people died in a single day as hijacked planes crashed into the Twin Towers, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania. America was devastated. And bin Laden? He became the world's most wanted man. After the September 11, 2001 attacks, finding Osama bin Laden became the top priority for the United States. Intelligence reports suggested that bin Laden was hiding in Afghanistan's mountainous Tora Bora region, a remote and rugged area near the border with Pakistan. Tora Bora was known for its network of caves and tunnels, which had been used by the Mujahideen during the Soviet-Afghan War. For U.S. forces, it was like searching for a needle in a haystack. Only this needle could fight back and disappear into the shadows. In December 2001, U.S. Special Forces, along with allied Afghan fighters, launched an offensive in Tora Bora. The area was bombarded by American airstrikes as U.S. troops tried to close in on bin Laden's location. Intelligence indicated that bin Laden was there and possibly cornered. Some reports claimed he was even injured during the bombardments. However, there were significant challenges. U.S. forces relied heavily on local Afghan militias to help conduct the search. While these militias knew the terrain well, their loyalty was questionable. Some may have been bribed or intimidated by bin Laden's network, while others simply lacked the will to capture him. As the U.S. pressed forward, bin Laden reportedly issued his final instructions to his followers, urging them to continue the fight even if he were killed. But bin Laden wasn't planning to die. Under the cover of darkness, he escaped, likely using the same mountain paths and tunnels that had helped the Mujahideen evade Soviet forces years earlier. Bin Laden's exact route after Tora Bora remains unclear, but most experts believe he crossed into Pakistan. The border region, known for its tribal areas, was a perfect hiding spot. It was remote, poorly governed, and full of sympathizers who could shelter him. This area, particularly North and South Waziristan, became a sanctuary for many Al-Qaeda operatives. Bin Laden's escape from Tora Bora was a major setback for the U.S. The failure to capture him here led to significant criticism of the military strategy. Some argued that more ground troops were needed, while others pointed to the reliance on Afghan militias as the critical flaw. For the next several years, bin Laden disappeared from the radar. Occasionally, video or audio messages would surface, taunting the U.S. and claiming responsibility for ongoing attacks. These recordings proved he was alive, but they gave no hint of where he was hiding. By the mid-2000s, it became increasingly clear that traditional military strategies weren't enough to find bin Laden. The U.S. military's focus on large-scale operations in Afghanistan and Iraq did little to disrupt Al-Qaeda's leadership, particularly its most secretive figure. It was time for a different approach. The CIA, known for its covert capabilities, took center stage in the hunt for bin Laden. This shift reflected a new understanding. Bin Laden was not moving around like a typical military leader. He was hiding, staying off the grid, and avoiding detection by any means necessary. Finding him required piecing together small bits of information, following leads that were often years old and seemingly insignificant. One key realization was that bin Laden likely avoided all electronic communication. No phones, no emails, nothing traceable. He had learned from past mistakes, knowing that the US had unparalleled surveillance capabilities. Instead, he relied on trusted couriers to deliver messages and maintain his connection to Al-Qaeda. The breakthrough came through interrogation of detainees at Guantanamo Bay and other secret prisons. Multiple detainees mentioned a figure known as Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti, describing him as one of bin Laden's closest couriers. Abu Ahmed was trusted enough to deliver bin Laden's orders to Al-Qaeda operatives, making him a critical link in the organization's chain of command. For years, the CIA worked to identify and locate Abu Ahmed. This task was anything but straightforward. Al-Qaeda operatives were trained to resist interrogation, and the information they provided was often contradictory. However, as the CIA pieced together fragments from different sources, a clearer picture emerged. They learned that Abu Ahmed was Pakistani by origin and had deep ties to bin Laden's inner circle. But tracking him down was another story. He was careful, rarely staying in one place, and avoided areas where he might attract attention. In 2010, the CIA caught a lucky break. They intercepted a phone call involving Abu Ahmed. For the first time in years, they had a lead. They tracked the call to a city in northern Pakistan, Abbottabad. Abbottabad was an unusual location for someone like Abu Ahmed. It wasn't a remote tribal area but a bustling city, home to Pakistan's military academy and many retired officers. This wasn't the kind of place where one would expect to find a high-ranking Al-Qaeda operative. When CIA agents began surveillance of the area, they noticed something even more intriguing. Abu Ahmed frequently visited a large, heavily fortified compound. This compound didn't fit the profile of an ordinary home. It had high walls topped with barbed wire, no phone lines or internet, and the residents burned their trash instead of leaving it out for collection, a habit that immediately drew suspicion. As the CIA observed the compound, they noticed a tall man who never left its walls. He would walk in the courtyard for exercise, keeping to himself. The agents called him the Pacer. The Pacer's behavior was peculiar, and his stature matched descriptions of bin Laden. But was it really him? The CIA couldn't be sure. Bin Laden had used decoys in the past, and there was always a chance they were looking at someone entirely unrelated. Still, the circumstantial evidence was compelling. The compound's design, the secrecy, and the presence of Abu Ahmed all pointed to one conclusion. Osama bin Laden might finally have been found. The hunt had taken nearly a decade, but for the first time since Tora Bora, the US had a viable lead. Now, the question was how to act on it. By mid-2010, the hunt for Osama bin Laden had entered its most critical phase. The discovery of Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti's location in Abbottabad, Pakistan, marked a major turning point. After years of dead ends and false leads, the CIA now had a target worth scrutinizing, a compound that seemed to defy normal expectations. When CIA operatives began surveillance on the compound, its peculiarities stood out immediately. Built in 2005, the structure was unlike any other in the area. It was 3 stories tall, surrounded by 12 to 18-foot high walls topped with barbed wire. Unlike neighboring homes, it had no telephone lines, internet connection, or satellite dishes. The occupants lived in near-total isolation, avoiding interaction with the local community. Another strange habit was how they handled trash. Instead of leaving it out for collection, the residents burned it within the compound walls. To the CIA, this was a clear sign they wanted to avoid leaving any evidence that could be examined. But the most intriguing detail was a man who appeared occasionally in the courtyard. He never left the compound and was only seen during brief walks. CIA agents nicknamed him the Pacer. Based on his height, gait, and behavior, they suspected he might be Osama bin Laden, but there was no way to confirm it visually. Despite extensive surveillance, the CIA couldn't definitively prove that the Pacer was bin Laden. They lacked clear photographs or intercepted communications. However, other circumstantial evidence piled up. Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti's presence at the compound tied it to Al-Qaeda, and the fortress-like design suggested that whoever lived there had something, or someone to hide. The CIA's analysts debated the probability of bin Laden being inside. Some were nearly certain, while others thought there was only a 40 to 50% chance. But given bin Laden's history of avoiding detection and the security measures in place, this was the most promising lead they'd had since Tora Bora. By early 2011, the intelligence was compelling enough to bring to President Barack Obama. What followed were weeks of intense discussions, simulations, and planning. The stakes couldn't have been higher. If bin Laden was in the compound, capturing or killing him would be a monumental victory. If he wasn't, the operation could embarrass the US and damage relations with Pakistan. President Obama was presented with three main options. Drone strike. A drone strike could eliminate the compound entirely, minimizing risks to US personnel. However, it carried significant downsides. A drone strike wouldn't provide confirmation that bin Laden was dead unless his body could be recovered. There was also the risk of civilian casualties and the possibility that the compound might be empty. Joint operation with Pakistan. Some advisors suggested involving Pakistan's government and military in the operation. However, trust between the US and Pakistan was low. There was concern that notifying Pakistan could lead to leaks, allowing bin Laden to escape. Covert ground raid. This option involved sending US Navy SEALs to infiltrate the compound, confirm bin Laden's presence, and kill or capture him. It was the most complex and risky option, but it also offered the highest chance of success. It would require stealth to avoid detection by Pakistan's military and careful planning to minimize American casualties. After weighing the risks and benefits, President Obama chose the covert ground raid. It was the boldest choice, but also the one that aligned with the mission's ultimate goal: capturing or killing bin Laden while minimizing collateral damage. The mission, codenamed Operation Neptune Spear, was entrusted to the Joint Special Operations Command, JSOC, and SEAL Team 6, an elite counterterrorism unit. The team spent weeks rehearsing at a replica of the Abbottabad compound built in the US. They practiced various scenarios, including contingencies for mechanical failures or resistance from armed occupants. Stealth helicopters were chosen to evade radar detection. These specially modified aircraft were designed to operate quietly and avoid detection in Pakistani airspace. The SEALs would enter at night, under cover of darkness. On April 28, 2011, after weeks of deliberation, President Obama gave the green light. The mission would take place on the night of May 1, 2011. The stakes were clear. Success could bring closure to the victims of 9/11 and reaffirm America's commitment to justice. Failure could result in casualties, diplomatic fallout, and a significant blow to U.S. credibility. As the helicopters lifted off that night, the world was completely unaware of the high-stakes operation unfolding in the skies over Pakistan. On the night of May 1, 2011, the culmination of a decade-long hunt unfolded under the cover of darkness. Two stealth Black Hawk helicopters carried 24 Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 6, along with an interpreter and a military working dog named Cairo. Their mission was simple yet daunting: infiltrate the Abbottabad compound, confirm Osama bin Laden's presence, and eliminate him. The mission was fraught with risk from the start. The helicopters had to enter Pakistani airspace undetected, as the operation was carried out without informing Pakistan's government or military. If the helicopters were spotted, it could trigger a military response, potentially escalating into a diplomatic crisis or a full-blown conflict. But the stealth technology worked. The helicopters flew low to avoid radar detection, skimming over mountains and valleys until they reached the target, the fortified compound in Abbottabad. As the first helicopter attempted to hover over the compound, it ran into trouble. The walls of the compound were higher than expected, creating issues with air circulation that caused the helicopter to lose lift. It crash-landed inside the compound, but the SEALs were unharmed. Their training kicked in, and they adapted instantly. The second helicopter landed safely outside the compound, and the mission proceeded. The SEALs moved swiftly, breaching walls and doors with explosives. The compound was divided into three main sections: the guest house, the main building, and an adjacent structure. First floor. The SEALs encountered resistance almost immediately, killing two of bin Laden's couriers, including Abu Ahmed al-Kuwaiti and his younger brother Abrar, as they cleared the area. Second floor. The SEALs moved systematically, neutralizing threats as they advanced. They found women and children and ensured they were kept out of harm's way. On the second floor, they found Osama bin Laden's one of the sons, Khalid. They decided to kill him too, but he tried to hide. Fortunately, one of the SEALs knew Arabian language. He tried to call his name in the Arabian accent, and the trick worked. He gave a look at the stairs and shot dead. All this time, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and other officials were watching whole operation live with the help of the cameras placed on the uniform of the SEALs. Finally, they reached the third floor. On the third floor, the SEALs found Osama bin Laden. He was in a bedroom with one of his wives. Bin Laden made no effort to surrender. Fearing he could be armed or wearing a suicide vest, the SEALs shot him twice, once in the chest and once above the left eye. The world's most wanted man was dead. The SEALs quickly gathered intelligence materials, including hard drives, documents, and phones. They took bin Laden's body, ensuring it could be identified through DNA tests. They then destroyed the damaged helicopter to prevent its technology from falling into the wrong hands. But the tail of the crashed helicopter left behind. These are the real images of its tail. Using the remaining helicopter, they evacuated the compound, leaving behind only the smoldering wreckage of the crash. The entire operation lasted just 40 minutes. When the SEALs returned to their base in Afghanistan, DNA testing confirmed what they already knew. The man they had killed was Osama bin Laden. President Obama was informed, and the world would soon hear the news. After Osama bin Laden was killed by U.S. Navy SEALs, his body was handled in a way designed to respect Islamic traditions while ensuring no physical grave site could become a shrine. U.S. officials stated that his body was washed and wrapped in a white sheet, following Islamic funeral rites. This was reportedly supervised by a Muslim religious figure on board the USS Carl Vinson, the aircraft carrier where the body was taken. The U.S. government decided to bury bin Laden at sea to avoid any potential shrine or symbolic place that could incite extremist activity. His body was placed in a weighted bag and buried in the northern Arabian Sea within 24 hours of his death, in line with Islamic customs. The decision to bury him at sea sparked debates and conspiracy theories. Some argued that the method lacked transparency, while others believed it was a pragmatic solution to avoid further unrest. While photographs of bin Laden's body were reportedly taken, they were not released to the public, citing concerns about provoking retaliation or misuse of the images by extremists. These actions were part of an effort to swiftly and decisively manage the aftermath of one of the most significant counterterrorism operations in history. At 11:35 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, President Obama addressed the nation.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
The reaction was immediate. Across the United States, people poured into the streets to celebrate. At Ground Zero in New York City, where the Twin Towers had fallen a decade earlier, crowds gathered to pay tribute and reflect on the loss that had led to this moment. Internationally, the operation sparked mixed reactions. Many nations applauded the U.S. for bringing bin Laden to justice. However, Pakistan's government faced criticism for failing to detect bin Laden's presence so close to its military academy. Some speculated that elements within Pakistan's intelligence services may have been complicit in sheltering him. Osama bin Laden's death marked a significant victory in the war on terror. It was a moment of closure for many Americans, especially the families of those who had died on September 11th. But it was not the end of terrorism, nor of Al-Qaeda. In the years following bin Laden's death, Al-Qaeda remained active, although it was significantly weakened. New leaders emerged, and the organization evolved. Offshoots like Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, AQAP, and groups like ISIS took the spotlight, proving that the ideology bin Laden championed was still alive. The raid on Abbottabad became a textbook example of precision and courage in modern warfare. It demonstrated the value of intelligence and the skill of U.S. Special Forces. However, it also served as a reminder of the complexities of counterterrorism. Killing one man, even one as influential as bin Laden, didn't end the broader conflict. The operation highlighted the importance of perseverance. For nearly a decade, the hunt for bin Laden involved countless dead ends and setbacks. Yet the dedication of intelligence agencies and military personnel never wavered. The mission underscored that justice, while sometimes delayed, is achievable with determination and focus. The death of Osama bin Laden was more than just the elimination of a terrorist. It was a moment of reckoning, a message to those who would wage war against innocent lives. Justice is inevitable. For the families who lost loved ones on September 11th, it brought a measure of closure, though the scars remain. The hunt for bin Laden stands as a testament to human resilience and the unyielding pursuit of justice. Though one chapter of the war on terror ended that night in Abbottabad, the story continues. A reminder that vigilance, unity, and courage are the strongest tools against the forces of terror. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, hit like, comment the topic you want the next video on, and subscribe for more videos on history, mystery, and more.